Welcome, everybody, to this Daily Meditations author interview. My name is Mark Longhurst. I'm the publications manager at the CAC, and today I'm delighted to speak with Christine Valters Paintner. Christine is a prolific author, a retreat facilitator, a spiritual director, and she's also the online abbess of a global digital monastery called Abbey of the Arts, which offers courses and retreats and books to nurture contemplative practice and creative expression. Today we're talking about her book, Give Me a Word, the promise of an ancient practice to guide your year. Christine, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks, Mark. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Well, your book is Give Me a Word, and it's the promise of an ancient practice. What does it mean to ask God, Spirit, universe for a word? And how do you hope asking for a word, receiving a word, will impact the lives of your readers?
Well, Give Me a Word is an ancient practice from the early Christian desert tradition. We're talking 2nd, 3rd centuries in Egypt, Palestine, Syria. And these men and women, they were called the Ammas and the Abbas, the desert mothers and fathers, would seek out solitude out in the desert, and seekers followed them there. They were seeking solitude, but lots of people came out to seek out their wisdom. And this phrase is repeated often in the stories of the desert mothers and fathers, give me a word. And so we know that this was this, ancient practice. And what they're asking for is a word to give them life, to challenge them, to ruminate over many days or weeks, months, even years. One of the stories that we have, one of the monks goes away for 20 years and contemplates and then comes back for another word. So it's really about listening for a wisdom that's greater than you. It's not about seeking resolutions. It's not a New Year's resolution practice. It's not a goal-setting practice. It's not about achievement or solutions or quick fixes or anything like that. It's really about seeking this word or phrase or even an image that holds some wisdom for your life. And that is rich enough and juicy enough and, has enough depth to it that it can challenge you and continue to ripen over a period of time. So it's not, if you ask for a word and the word that comes back, you already know immediately, like all of the aspects of it and what it means for you entirely. That's generally probably isn't going to be the word that's going to sustain you over time. So my hope really is that readers will really open their hearts to a practice of listening, of learning to receive. It's not about taking a word or finding a word. I talk about letting the word choose you. So it's really about moving into this different way of consciousness, which is what the contemplative life teaches us, to move out of that grasping, making something happen, doing kind of mentality, and more about moving into that more receptive mode that is the mode of the heart, the mode that seeks out wisdom, that again helps us to enlarge ourselves and especially to enlarge our capacity for love. And that ripening or unfolding takes time, the way working with a dream takes time, the way layers are revealed over time.
Wow, that's so powerful. I especially love how you are reaching back into ancient tradition, the desert. Give me a word, Abba Amma, and really updating it for us in our contemplative practice today. What are a couple of practices that would help us attune our hearts to receive a word?
Well, the first and foundational one really is learning how to receive. And I talk about this in my work with contemplative photography and how we move from taking a photo to receiving an image, and how we move through the world a lot with this kind of grasping mentality. And what the contemplative path and what contemplative listening invites us to is like a deep exhale and an opening of our palms, of a softening. Again, it's not about achieving something, but receiving a gift. It's letting this word choose you, uh, and waiting for it to arrive, as opposed to feeling the impatience that we often feel when we want to know something or we want to have sort of instant results. So that's kind of the foundational aspect of it. And then there's lots of ways that I suggest in the book that you can cultivate that. One of the ways in particular that I love is to listen to my dreams. I already mentioned dreams, but I find dreams can offer up images to us that are full of richness and depth, that speak specifically to the seasons of our heart. Um, and yeah, invite us. So there might be a dream symbol that you then have a synchronicity with in your daily life, where that image then repeats. It comes up maybe even in an advertisement or in a conversation with a friend. So really that kind of attunement to the way the world might be reflecting something back to you and offering you this gift. But there's there are other ways if some people don't remember their dreams, so, they could have a conversation with a soul friend, or go out and listen in nature, or listen to, a companion animal. There's all different kinds of ways of connecting to this word.
Yeah, I really felt one of your gifts reading the book is articulating creative contemplative practices in ways that are relevant and accessible. So thank you for offering such concrete practices. And it's so different than, I think maybe our tendency is to want to figure out a word, or, as you say, to take a word or think about a word, but you're really inviting us to step into this deeper contemplative posture of receiving a word and building a relationship with God, with our surroundings. And so it's really embodied and earthy. Can you say more about how that's connected to our bodies, to the earth, even to our dreams and ancestors? Would you say more about that?
Yeah, I feel like there's all these layers of support that we have in our life and all these places of really deep wisdom. And so for me, embodiment is really important, connecting with nature and with earth, in a true relationship and a conversation, and especially connecting to saints and ancestors as well. And each of those is really an essential source of wisdom, and I think helps us to broaden out our sense of who's there for us, what's possible for us. In one of the contemplative practices, I talk about going out into nature, and the writer Terry Tempest Williams, that some of you might be familiar with, she uses the phrase "give me one wild word," which I really love. And I have a love of, so for instance, with earth, I have a great love of the wisdom of the elements: earth, water, wind, fire, and how each of those offers us a rich symbol and a metaphor for different aspects of our lives. So, for instance, we might connect with the air and the wind and the breath and think about, where am I being invited to more of a sense of spaciousness, or where am I invited to breathe in more deeply into my life? Um, with water, for instance, I think of following the river's flow as being like a key quality of water for me. How do I like try and force the river, try and swim upstream? How can I let that kind of inform my own life and my own choices and my own spiritual practice? And for me, the saints and the ancestors are this, I call them the love of thousands, which actually comes from a quote from a poet, but Linda Hogan, But it's this honoring and acknowledging all of these wise voices who've lived before us, all these wise and well ones who also can offer us guidance in listening for what might be most nourishing, most enlivening for us in the season ahead and challenging. I just want to add that we're not necessarily just listening for something that resonates deeply with us, but sometimes we'll feel a lot of resistance to a word. And I think, for myself, at least my experience is that if something is challenging me a lot and I'm feeling that kind of energetic resistance to it, it's probably the place where I'm going to have the most growth and the most like rich interaction with it. So, just to say that we're not just looking for the thing that makes us feel good at first listen, although it might for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, listening in this deep way of what do we really need, and what is God calling us to be transformed into. And gosh, I love that phrase, the love of thousands. I also hear you inviting us into really an awakened sensibility of that we're not alone, that we're surrounded by ancestors, by the earth, by the elements. So that's a powerful invitation, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And also just to honor, our bodies as, that incarnational wisdom, that one of the things about Christianity is that it's this beautifully incarnational tradition, and yet somehow we've seemed to have gotten cut off from our bodies over time. And so returning to our bodies as also a source of deep wisdom, just like the earth and the ancestors, is another doorway or another gateway into those possibilities.
So helpful. One practice that we have as a publications team each year is to listen for a word. As I read your book, I kept thinking, gosh, when we come up with our daily meditations theme each year, we're doing our best to get out of the way, to listen for a word. And this year, our theme has been being salt and light. And we're taking inspiration from Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 5, where he says, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." Very, very earthy, very ecological. And we're leaning into ways that we can be a presence of love and compassion and justice through our lives and in our world. How does asking for and receiving a word in this deeper contemplative posture, how does it help us be salt and light in that way?
Well, I'll say, first of all, I think that simply cultivating that contemplative posture that we were already talking about learning how to listen and wait and receive and attend and attune and pay attention to that ripening, that those skills and qualities of being in a world that demands relentless doing, those on their own are a powerful act of resistance and a way of saying, this is what I value in the world. This is a way of being in the world that is gentler, kinder, more loving, honoring of the limitations of our bodies. Yeah, honoring just our need as human beings for pleasure and play and delight. So the contemplative path, I think, for me is really this witness to an alternative way of being in the world. And ultimately, the word is meant to kind of illumine our gifts and ways that we might share them in the world. It can help sharpen our clarity of how we're called specifically to be a presence of love in the world, because ultimately it is about expanding our capacity to love. And sometimes there are people in our lives that might be hard to love. So the word, um, my hope and is that the word helps us to, um, yeah, to look on more and more of the world with eyes of love.
Would you be able to give us a couple of examples of words that that you've used or that retreat participants have used, just so that we can understand what possibilities and kind of the scope of what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. I'll share a word that has come back to me several times, just to illustrate how the word might be for a season, but it might also continue speaking to us. And the word for me is surplus, and it came out of, so I have chronic illness and I deal with a lot of pain and fatigue in an ongoing way, and I'm always very mindful of my energy and my physical limitations and my energetic limitations. And I'm always in an ongoing discernment around, yeah, how do I keep showing up in a way that feels sustainable, that feels like I can um, offer the gifts that I really want to offer, but in a way that doesn't deplete me. But then I started to shift that, and it was through this word that came to me, surplus, because I realized that for me, it wasn't just about being sustainable. Because for me, just personally, there was this sense of just sustainability as like a just enough resources. And I realized what I really longed for was actually a surplus of energy and vitality and joy in what I'm doing. And that word has continued to challenge me and call to me. It was inspired actually by a book from a Jungian analyst. The book is about the Fisher King and the Handless Maiden, which are these two fairy tales. But he talks about, in relation to the Handless Maiden story, he talks about how our energy is mortgaged into the future, how we have so overcommitted ourselves that we are so plugged into this relentless um, culture of doing, right? That we never feel like we catch up. And so what would it be like to actually feel not even like I'm caught up, but to feel like I have this surplus, right? And as someone with chronic illness, that's actually really difficult to feel because I'm often feel quite depleted energetically. But it's been a word that has come around to me every few years or so as really a deeper invitation to look at the commitments in my life, look at the way I'm approaching my work and my play, and yeah, just sort of a deeper invitation to not even just bring things into balance, but to find that place where the salt and the light can be in abundance.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing such a personal example of how it can be a really positive thing. And I hear the challenge of the word. It's not what's easy. It's what it really is calling us to, this greater expansion of who we are meant to become. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
As we move into the fall and into the winter, the subtitle is The Promise of an Ancient Practice to Guide Your Year. It seems to me it's a natural point at which to begin that discernment. What is reality? What is my body? What are the ancestors? What is the earth telling me? How can I listen? What's some encouragement for those of us who might want to embark on this practice for the new year? How would you recommend we begin?
Well, I'm a fan of paying attention to thresholds in your life. Um, so while the book is originated because in our community we did this practice for the new year, it can really be at any season of our lives. And I encourage people to pay attention to threshold times. So that might be a season, a turning point season, autumn equinox or Feast of All Saints and All Souls or winter solstice or the new year or, Christmas, any of those turning points. Because and I live in Ireland, so I'm very, I love the Celtic tradition and the Celtic imagination, and thresholds are these places that are just full of vibrancy and where the holy is even closer than usual. Of course, the belief is that the holy is always around us and accessible, but at these threshold moments, so that might be dawn or dusk, it might be these particular points of calendar in the year, it might be seasons in our life or particular places that we go to, like a mountaintop or a garden or any place like that, or going on a pilgrimage. But the thing is that these thresholds are liminal spaces that where we're letting go of the old and the new hasn't yet arrived, so they're full of possibility. So I think I really encourage people to just pay attention to what is the threshold that you're on or in, like what is the season of your life and what is the outer season that's happening. Are there places in your life that are calling you to journey toward both physical places as well as emotional places? And then to really, I think for me, it's in those thin places where heaven and earth are closer together that we are often able to hear the word a little more clearly, because there is that sense of the veil being thinner and our perceptions being more attuned if we're, open and ready to kind of receive that and make ourselves available to hear that. So yeah, so all to say, you could listen for the word at any threshold of the year, and then if it feels like a satisfying way to begin a new year, then that would be your threshold or your doorway to rest into and to open yourself up to the way that spirit is speaking to you, the ancestors, the earth, all of those beautiful, wise presences in our lives.
Wow, thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight and inviting us to really pay attention to the thresholds and to the luminosity of our lives. It's a real joy to be in dialogue with you, Christine. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it, Mark. Thank you.